What's good? It's Terrell from Keep It 100 podcast show. We're trying this new way of streaming. So this will be on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Later, it'll be on Instagram. I'm not going to waste too much time talking about this, though, because I want to talk about our guests that we have. So I see her in the, I guess, waiting section, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. All I have to do is press add and then she'll join the stream. So I'm going to do that really quick. Hello, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
All right, I'm good. I'm not sure if I'm late by a minute, but hopefully it wasn't too bad.
No.
All right, for sure. Excuse me. I appreciate you for joining me.
No problem.
No worries. I didn't know that your business had a Instagram page. I barely just figured that out. Probably like yesterday. So I created a banner for it and I'll put it up.
Okay, thank you.
About it. First thing I want to get to on here, I don't know if you've seen some episodes that we do, but we usually like allow you to like introduce yourself. If you're okay with that, fine. If you're not, I can go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
We do it that way because we don't like getting like people's names wrong.
Yeah.
So if it's okay.
Yeah. I'm Sabrina Lassegue, and I'm a filmmaker and actress located in Los Angeles.
Okay, for sure.
I have a production company, Yellow Rain Productions, that I started earlier this year, and yeah, that's pretty much me.
Okay, for sure. I actually took the time to write out some questions that I have for you. So I was more interested to know like what caused you to start your company. But the first question I'm gonna ask, like, I'm curious to where you're from. Like, are you from LA or are you from New York?
I am from Bethesda, Maryland, and it's like a smaller town, like in the DMV area. That's like DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but in Maryland. And I moved to New York for college, and then did like a year there, and then did a year here in LA, and then graduated this past.
All right, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I saw like your Instagram, of course, it says the company is like LA and New York based.
Yeah.
So that was my main reason for that question. Actually, sometime during this conversation, I'm going to ask you a question about like do you have like a top 5 filmmaker list as far as like people that inspire you, or a top 5 actor list? It doesn't have to go 1 through 5 though, just your personal. Okay, moving on. First question, official question. Why filmmaking? Like what made you get into that? Like is that like behind like schooling or like any type of inspirations?
Well, I always, since I was a young kid, my parents basically since I was a baby, both my parents would always just like document everything that my younger brother and I were doing. And like we would make these home videos. So I kind of grew up in front of a camera. And like I started as a dancer when I was like, as soon as I could walk, my mom put me in ballet. And I kind of fell in love with like watching TV and everything like that, but like I wanted to make my own stories, so I started directing my younger brother in like the Sabrina show, and I would like put on like I would set up the camera on like a stack of books, and then one day like in 3rd grade I like checked out this book, biography on Steven Spielberg, and I was supposed to return the book within like 3 weeks or something, and I just kept that book for 2 years, and my mom had to pay a fine and I would just keep rereading the book and like his like journey to filmmaking and everything, and I was like, I want to do that. And then for me, it just became like a thing where I was just like in love with filmmaking, and like I just wanted to constantly make movies, and I liked directing people. And like I got involved in theater at a young age too, because when I was 5 on a cruise ship, my parents like asked what show, like what could they do at nighttime with like the family, and the one of the cruise directors was like, "Oh, there's this show Chicago that's playing tonight, and it's like this musical, and it's like burlesque type theme thing, but we didn't know that, and we were late, so we got there like midway of the show, and like it's like these women and they're like dancing on chairs and everything and talking about murdering their husbands. And my dad was like, this is not for kids, and I was like, he was like, let's get out of here, and I was just like so like mesmerized, and I was like, I want to do that too. Like be on stage and acting and dancing and doing all of that. So I just started like combining the two, and I always had a passion for writing. So I started writing my own scripts and like putting storytelling together, and thus like got my interest into film.
Okay. Do you remember like your first film that you did? Like, what's the process like?
The first ever film I made, I was 12 years old, and it was like around the time like my grandpa on my mom's side had just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I didn't really know what that was. And like when my parents kind of explained it to me, it was like really kind of heartbreaking for me. So I kind of put together like I had a YouTube channel as a kid, and I put together like this script that I was going to follow, but like I didn't have any actors or anything, and like none of my friends in school were actors, so I wasn't going to use them. So I just like took a bunch of shots of stuff, and I called it Noodles on the Floor, and then released it to YouTube, and it got like over like 2,000 views like overnight.
Okay.
This crappy film, and it wasn't like good. It was just like this crappy film, but like I put like this soppy music in the background. I had reached out to this girl who made covers on YouTube that I liked, and I was like, "Can I use your song for this thing? I want to make this film." And like it was like a telephone. There's a phone call happening in the film where it's like the lady who's taking care of this girl's mother who has Alzheimer's calls her daughter and is like talking to her about how her mother drops noodles on the floor and like forgets everything that she's doing and everything, and the daughter just kind of doesn't care and everything. And like for me, that's not what was happening in my family, but people started asking me like, is this what's happening in your family? And I was like, no, like my parents are like fine with like my grandpa having Alzheimer's, and they're really like they take care of him fine and everything. But it was just like I just like take little bits of my life, like my scripts are like that. I'll take like a bit of my life and kind of alter it or like use my own experience. But it was like a really bad film, and like looking back, like I went and put it on private like 2 years ago on YouTube because I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, but that 2,000 views though, like overnight, like that's pretty good. Well, I'm not in film, so I don't know. You tell me, like, is that pretty good overnight? 2,000
For
views.
the time period, like when it was like around the time YouTube was just like becoming like what YouTube is. So like yeah, but like now it's like
All
yeah.
right, for sure. So now the video is on private on YouTube, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In case I wanted to watch one day, I'll ask you about it first. But
Yes.
all right, for sure. Moving on. What about a favorite film that you did, like that you like had fun on? Like, do you have a favorite one?
Definitely this year I did a short film on human trafficking that kind of blew up and has like been putting me more in the filmmaking world, like kind of on the filmmaking map with that. And it was like it's not like the best short film. It's a short film that's like 10 minutes
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And like I wanted to tell this story because like last November my I got a call from someone that I had gone to elementary school with, like her family, and basically they were telling me how she had just passed away, and it wasn't like she passed away, it was she was murdered and she had been kidnapped and put in human trafficking. They murdered her and sent her parents like a photo of her body, like cut up and everything. And it really inspired me to like do more of like what can we do to talk about this, and something like it's something that's like really important to me, but it was just like something that a lot of people when I was trying to bring attention to it were like be really careful with that and like don't go about that in the wrong way. So I was like, well, how can I use my talents to do this? So I directed that film, and it was the first film that I actually like directed besides like the one that I had done when I was super young. But doing that one was really interesting, and I entered that in a few competitions, and it actually won a first time
Oh,
filmmaking award, and
okay.
it won, like a few it got nominated for a few things, and it actually picked up a few awards. And just like working with the people who were in it, like everyone was willing to dedicate their time to it, and we shot it in 2 days, and it was like not like the best film, but it was like the message was clear and like using 10 minutes time, and I wanted it to be like precise and like tell the story without like showing too much, because I wanted it to be a film that definitely people could show like their kids and tell them about human trafficking and tell them what it is and like explain it using this film. So there's like nothing really shown, but everything's implied, and it kind of left that emotional scarring. And I also wanted to cover the fact that both men and women do are a part of human trafficking on the bad side of it. So that was really important for me to include in the film. And so that was that film that I did earlier that I'm definitely the most proud of.
Okay. I actually had a question about that, I think, but kind of just answered that already. So, it's all good. Um, I have a banner like of your Instagram, like in case someone wants to like follow you for like film stuff. So, okay, if I post that like for like
Yeah,
2 seconds.
yeah.
Okay, so this is your Instagram. I believe so. That's what I looked at. But so in case you guys want to follow her, that's her Instagram. I'll be making a video like on our story of like summarizing the interview, which will have your Instagram, of course. So just wanted to get that out there before I move on to my next question I have for you, actually. So I'm gonna move on to that really quick. All right, next question I have for you. This is about like inspirations, like far as like filmmaking, starting a business, actually doing that. Like, what are your inspirations? Who inspired you, basically, to be people, family? I don't know, another business.
Yeah, definitely Steven Spielberg in like terms of just going out there, like putting yourself out there to make films. But in terms of like why I like women who are in film who actually inspire me to like start my whole business and everything, definitely like Ava DuVernay, Viola Davis, Kerry Washington, Shonda Rhimes is like a huge one for me because I love all of her shows, and the fact that she can have that many shows running at a time, and she is just such an amazing like creator, and the fact that she comes up with all these different plots is really interesting to me. And that just pushed me to like focus on my writing so much when I was in high school and like learned about her, and I love keeping up with what she's doing. Like Viola has her own production company, and so does Kerry Washington. And Ava DuVernay, obviously, like the way that she's paved way to tell like amazing Black stories to me is just awesome. As Black woman, Issa Rae is another one. Like her story of like how her show got picked up off of YouTube and everything, and how she's been in the industry fighting for it for so long, and then it finally stuck recent years and everything. And I think that's really cool, and she definitely inspires me to do everything, because I think a lot of times people kind of tell me like you kind of need to pick and choose what you're going to do, like you can't be behind the camera and in front of the camera, and I get that a lot. And like, you can't write your scripts and direct and act in it, and it's like, well, Issa does it, so why can't I? So that definitely inspires me, and like, she's definitely proved herself in this industry and proved that you can do it. And I think like Tyler Perry also does that, and he definitely has proven that. But it was like really cool to see like a Black woman who's doing this as well, and she definitely inspires me with that. And then I really love Jordan Peele because just his thing of like his production company with Money Talk, what they do, and like creating like these Black horror stories and like telling these awesome psychological thrillers that like I just would never think of. Like, to me, they're just so amazing. Like, I can't wait to see. Like, he's more new to a lot of people, but I've been following him for a really long time, and like to see him like grow, and I can't wait to see like what else he does, and that really inspires me to keep pushing myself. And obviously, like Spike Lee, and I like Tarantino's movies a lot, but definitely like Spike Lee's movies really inspire me as well, and just like the way that he creates and thinks, and like his production, his whole like MO of like how he produces is really awesome to me.
For sure. Okay. Sounds good. I want to transition to like, we're talking about like film, of course, like inspirations, but
Yeah.
like your company, Yellow Rain Productions,
Yes.
are you able to explain like how to like start a filmmaking company? Like
Yeah.
what are the steps?
We'll definitely have experience in film, which like I had a lot of experience leading up to it, and like basically the first thing I did was like find what I wanted to call my company in the first place. And originally I was going with Slytherin Productions with capital SL because my name is Sabrina Lassegue, and have it be Slytherin, and I'm the year of the snake. So that was like really interesting to me. But my mom hates snakes, and she was like, it's like the devil's curse. You're bringing on bad mojo to your company and everything. And so I end up dropping that, and like I brainstormed for a really long time, and I kind of remembered like when I was younger in seventh, like one of my teachers, he actually shared his life story with us, and then he kind of had each of us go around and share our stories with him. And his response to me sharing my story was kind of, for someone who's been through like so much stuff, you are such like a happy person. And he was like, it's kind of like yellow rain, like sunshine, rain without sunshine. And so I kind of like stuck with that, and I started looking up, are there any things with Yellow Rain? Is that like Yellow Rain Productions? Are there anything that it's close to? Is it its own thing? And so that's the first thing that I made sure of, that it was for sure like its own original thing. And then I contacted a lawyer who does patents and stuff like that, got the name like registered with USPTO. After that, the next thing I started working on was the website for a long time, but I didn't want to launch the website until there was like, I had enough stuff and like enough credibility that people would
Mm-hmm.
look at the website and be like, okay, she knows what she's doing. I would hire her. I would hire this company. They know what they're doing, etc. So the next thing I started was like, when I created the production company, it was like definitely the goal was to launch like, to focus on like implementing diversity on all sides of film, which is like, when you say that, people kind of think like, I mean, there is diversity in film, but they don't really realize like writers' rooms are still pretty much predominantly white. Like, it's very
Mm-hmm.
rare there are people brought in to write their own culture's characters. And that's something that I feel like Hollywood gets wrong a lot of times. Like Disney will scandal with Mulan recently, like their writers were all white and they're writing this movie. People were very upset because it was just very wrong. So that's like what I focused on. So immediately I got like a bunch of my friends from college, because I went to a performing arts school, and we all kind of have the same roles, and like the production company wanted to be able to offer them roles and create roles for them, so that in the beginning of their career and launching their career, they could have like credible roles and like we can work together as a collaboration so that it's like helping my production company, but it also helps them get roles in the future because they're building a resume and their reels and stuff like that. So I got all of them, and I got people of all different backgrounds and different ethnicities, races, and we started a writers' room. And I was like, "What's like something that you wanted to see?" And I kind of like surveyed like, "What can I bring that exists in the film world already?" Because that's the first thing you want to do when starting a business is like, what are you going to do that's different, and like what's the problem that needs a solution. So that was like immediately what I did. And speaking to a lot of them, they were like, I'm tired of playing, like my Hispanic friends were like, I'm tired of like seeing me play the maid or the spicy Latina girl. Why can't there just be the girl next door who happens to be Hispanic? And I was like, that's really interesting because that's how I felt growing up watching like black actors and stuff. That's why I love True Jackson VP with like Keke Palmer. So
Mm-hmm.
immediately that was like something that I wanted to start implementing. Then like one of my friends who is Native American, she had said, well, there are never really Native stories being told, and like when they are, they like dress us up in like the Native and Indigenous people's costumes and everything, and it's really over the top. They never show you like a modern day person who's Native. And I was like, okay, these are all things I want to start implementing in my stories. And then obviously stereotype of like the black person or minority being killed off first in this like or so people were like live. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool. So I started like writing that, and then like I saw that like there was like this TikTok video that blew up earlier this year when Black Lives Matter stuff started taking off. This boy who was like complaining how he never wants to see another black struggle movie because he lived it. And he was like, we're living it. I don't want to see the police brutality thing. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. And he was saying how, why can't we have the coming of age story where the lead is black? Why can't we have like a story where they go to space and the lead is black who's an astronaut in space? He's like, why can't we have just a time travel movie just because, and they happen to be black, like without all the struggle stuff. And I was like, that's what film is. Like you turn to movies and TV to kind of escape the real world. That like that's what the art's created for. So you can also use it to reflect times, but there comes a point where like people need an escape from things. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a company to be able to offer that balance. So that was like definitely the first few steps that I followed in making my business.
Okay, for sure. Great insight from filmmaking business owner. So thank you for that. I have another question. So I also run business as well. So far as I guess advertising your business, like is that something you were self-taught or did someone teach you that? So I found out that I was self-taught doing it. So I'm just curious to what, like, if you were self-taught or you had someone teaching you like how to advertise and market your brand.
I'm definitely self-taught. That's like something since I was younger that I've always kind of been. I think that comes from like looking at other people. Like I really study other people and how they kind of go about their own brand, even when it's just themselves and they're kind of pitching themselves for something. That's something I've always paid attention to from a very young age. And that's something that even in school I would implement to like pitch myself as a good character with my teachers, knowing that later on I want like commendation letter from these people. So it's like you're gonna pitch yourself a certain way and like present yourself a certain way. And then I kind of started applying that into my business. And when I was in high school, I interned with Teen Vogue and did some social media stuff with them. So that was really cool. And that they kind of throw you into it, and like I would implement film into that as well. Like I would go to like the March on Washington like last year or 2 years ago for change and like interview people and stuff like that. And it became a thing where I was like, okay, I can use social media as a business tool before people were even using social media as their like whole brand and business. And then
Hmm.
so that's something that I caught on really quickly with. And then as well as like finding out what works and what people's interests are. And that's something that's like big with me is like asking people like what they want to see. Because if you just ask people, I find that it's easier than like assuming or things like that. And it's like why have like the access to the audience that I'm trying to reach because it's people who are in my age group. So why not? So asking my friends and stuff like that, like what are you tired of seeing? What do you want to see, etc. Like
Ooh, this smells good.
about like what captivates them because like
Oh, I was going to sleep. Was Billy Green yet?
Okay.
film on human trafficking, and I knew that people
Green yet?
the other reason I was like
61 point.
looking at the audience engagement, people kind of seem to fall off once it reaches like 5 minutes in. And I was like, what can I create that I can release on Instagram or YouTube that's that quick that it holds people from the very beginning all the way to the end, and it's like so short that people are like stay engaged the entire time. So I knew to start the film, most of the one that I did, I knew to start the film with screams, and it captivates the audience within the first 5 seconds. And then it was only a 2 minute and 30-second short film, and the whole time people like looking at the engagement before watching it from start to finish. So that's
Okay.
definitely something that I implement.
Sure. Okay. I'm learning a lot right now, actually. So I come from IT background, so it's kind of different from like film, of course. But do you have a how do I put this like favorite social media platform that you like to use, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, some other ones I'm forgetting, TikTok, some other ones as well. But like, do you have a favorite one that like just works for you, or like a top three that you use?
Um, people, and then as well as I just
Okay.
film and production company. I people asking all of my followers on my business Instagram, my personal Instagram, so that and following my journey. What you want to see psychological thrillers, age, comedies, like dark horror, they want to see. And the top thing I wanted to slowly build myself up. And then using Instagram is a great way, I feel like, to make connections too and see what everyone's doing. Like, I use Instagram to follow a lot of casting directors, and obviously, you don't want to like DM casting. It's interesting to see like what projects are they working on. Like to mention, hey, like there's this happening. Like, is there any way you see anything for this? Like, this and different filmmakers like and everything, like Jordan Peele's production company, to see like snippets of what they're doing, and it's also really helpful to see how they go about advertising their films without giving give background. Like, at this he was saying how he loves to see quotes from people posting that. And what I was noticing was the opposite from a lot of larger production companies and different productions. They film the film, they don't want to release the photos from the actual film. They release like photos from behind the scenes instead. And that gains a lot of buzz. So I started doing that and noticed that that was working for me. And I pay attention to like what people like on my business Instagram. I noticed that a lot of people engage with these different quote pages from films and like movie quotes. So I took quotes from my scripts that haven't even been released or made into films yet and started turning them into these videos with like really interesting music that's like 15 seconds that captivates people, and they engage with it and they relate to these quotes. They're like from like movies are basically about society and everything, so they really relate to the quotes, and that really helps me. So I think Instagram is a platform for all of that, like showing people what you're doing and keeping up with everyone.
Okay, great insight again. I feel like I'm learning. Not gonna be a film person though, but learning no. But what are your thoughts on TikTok? We got one, but we're just I find myself looking at it, but I'm looking at other people's videos for like hours. And I'm just like, all right, like that's enough. I just need to figure it out. Have you completely figured out TikTok? I think I'm 50% in right now.
Yeah. TikTok I think is really interesting because your videos have a chance of like blowing up for nothing, like for anything. You can really
Yeah,
like really easy for people to blow up, but then at the same time it's like I think the hardest thing is like even the people that do blow up on TikTok, it's like your the hardest thing is maintaining that engagement with people. So maintaining that audience. And I think like something that like a lot of TikTokers do that I've noticed what works for them is whatever video that gets the most views, they turn that into a series. And I think that's
yeah,
how you keep the audience. And I think that's where a lot of people also go wrong on TikTok because they're not doing that. And they kind of just have videos that are all over the place. And I think they stick to like whatever their top engaged video is, and you take that and expand it into a larger thing. Like it was you create a business or something, or you're talking about your business, people seem to like that. Make more videos talking about that. And I think TikTok's really taking over though, because it definitely is
yeah,
with having the creators fun. And I definitely think people's attention spans are so short. And I think that's why a lot of people thought Quibi was going to stick around and work, but it didn't. And I think the thing with Quibi is that people nowadays, you're so attached to your phone that you can't watch TV on your phone because you need to be doing the other app while the TV is playing in the background. So that's
yeah,
where Quibi went wrong. And I think I kind of had that feeling, and a lot of my friends were like, no, it's going to stick around. And I was like, I don't think so, because like watching the movie now, people are like on Instagram while they're watching the movie. They're texting or Snapchatting while they're watching a movie. They can't do that if Quibi is playing on their phone. So with TikTok, it's like all these short videos, like 24/7, like the max you can do is like a minute. So like every short video, it's not like it's an episode of something, and like it's really catered to you with the For You page, which is really interesting to me that they're able to do that because they really cater to everyone's taste. And I'm not sure how they do that, but it's really cool for them. And I definitely agree, like it keeps you sucked in for like hours and hours. The screen time has like gone up so much, and I think like they really capitalized off of quarantine and how they have like a creators fund. And I hear like negative things with the creators fund because a lot of people who do join the creators fund, TikTok seems to be slowing down their videos, which is really interesting to me. But
yeah,
I feel like it works even if you don't join that because you're gaining exposure. And if you link like your Instagram, your YouTube, your different websites in your bio and you redirect people to those things, then people start following you on those platforms and they start engaging with you on those things and following you there. So different brands start offering you opportunities outside of TikTok. So that's really cool.
yeah. I noticed that when we first signed up, I was like, oh, I can send this to an Instagram story, Instagram feed, multiple pages. So I think we gained some followers off of just using it that way.
Yeah.
And I usually just post like whoever we're interviewing with. Like I'll post like a photo on TikTok and then add like music to it, and then
Yeah.
someone will be like, "Yo, who's that?" And I'm like, "Make sure you follow the person or us so you can know who that is."
Yeah.
But that's usually what I use it for. Besides, like me watching dumb videos of dumb stuff, but I think it's taken over though. Like I don't it has every feature. I think the only thing that is missing that Twitch has is Twitch. I guess they can donate or you can make revenue off Twitch, but I kind of look at it as the same with YouTube. Kind of depends on like watch time and subscribers and content.
Yeah.
So
Also the creators fund, that way you can make money through them, but like now they're making it harder to get into that creators fund. I think like you need like 10,000 plus followers, which like for some people it's easier to get based on like what videos you're making and stuff, and then you just like need consistent like watch time. But yeah, I noticed like a lot of TikTokers too, like they released a report earlier this year how like I think Addison Rae made like a good like, 3.5 million, $6 million. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I need to start reading about TikTok more instead of just watching videos. But in the future though, like I'm just interested in like everyone that we podcast with. I'm just like, do you guys like use TikTok? Like I know like I connected with an artist in New York, and he's telling me he's like, yeah, I went from 200 followers to 24,000 followers on TikTok in like they say like a month or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, that's because you sing and rap, so like it's automatically gonna be like catching for like an artist.
Yeah.
But I feel like filmmaking, like you could do that, like long as like you consistently putting out content and stuff like that. People like watching film. I know I do.
Yeah.
But you have what are your thoughts on that? Like, as far as being a filmmaker, to like go from like whatever following you have currently to the next jump of like 10,000 or 20,000. Do you think there's like certain steps you have to take for that?
I definitely think like paying attention to algorithm is a big thing. Like recently Instagram changed algorithm, and
Yeah, I
now
noticed
like
that.
yeah, so a lot of people don't realize like certain hashtags are banned. You're not supposed to use more than a certain amount. You're not supposed to post too many stories. You're not supposed to post too little stories. There are like so many things. Now they're like pushing your post to like 10% of your feed and like the people who follow you. And then if it does well with that 10%, they will then push that to more people and everything like that. And I think that's really interesting that like a lot of people don't pay attention to that and they're like seeing their posts are doing way worse. And I think
Yeah,
paying attention to that and focusing on those things for me, because I use Instagram as a business, and even my personal Instagram, it's like I am my own business, because in the acting world, like they'll ask you like what's your Instagram, do commercials and print modeling and everything. So I need to go in and like most recently like posting, I make sure like I'm following all their new rules, all of like the algorithm stuff is working. I like pay attention to what times are active. Something that actually helps with that I notice is I'll post a story right before I'm going to post a picture of something totally unrelated to what I'm posting. I'm never someone who like takes my post and adds it to my story. I'll just post something completely separate that kind of engages the audience, and you can see like whoever's viewing your story, if like 200 people are viewing within the first 10 minutes, then that's how many people are online, and they're going to be online. Because something I find too is that a lot of people open Instagram for no reason. Like, they'll just kind of find themselves on Instagram, even though they've liked all the photos on their feed, and they just kind of open it to see on there. And that's kind of what our society has become. So if that many people are viewing your story, then it's probably a good time to post. And I think like that helps with bringing in followers as well, especially digital algorithm. I think you definitely have to post reels, which I've hesitated for, because I'm just like, well, like, why not use TikTok then if it's like the same thing as a reel? But Instagram is really pushing these reels on their
yeah,
platform, the explore page, and that's where a lot of people are getting seen more, and different things like that boost your following. And then like another thing to pay attention, like I remember like earlier this year I was at like 1,000. I had just like hit 1,100 something, And then like throughout quarantine, I reached 1,900 something. And then with the new algorithm, something they were saying is like people who don't interact with your posts, the higher followers you have, and if you're not meeting like halfway of the likes of the number of followers you have, then like you should get rid of the followers that don't interact with your post, and it will actually help your post be better. And I
Okay.
have less followers than high followers and less activity with my posts. So I kind of went through and was like, okay, and a lot of like public accounts too, they'll like attract like these bot accounts, which is like bad for the algorithm and everything. So I paid attention to all of that stuff and kind of went through and was like, okay, like these people don't really interact with my stuff at all. These people, like, it's not benefiting me, and it's just going to make my posts not be seen as much when I need them to be seen because I'm using it for business reasons.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with everything you said. Like, I notice sometimes when I post on our story, depending on the time of night it is, there's sometimes like I'll have a podcast like the next day and I'll just post some of like their videos or photos in the story. And sometimes it's like 11 o'clock and then boom, 400 views. And I'm like, okay, like why wouldn't I post the exact same thing like at, for example, 7 o'clock? We would only go to maybe like 25 to 30 views. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it makes sense, especially like, say, for example, like you keep seeing this certain individual, like, say, for example, this person you think you follow, but you don't follow, but you keep seeing them in like the explore section. So I'm like, okay, that's. I thought I followed this person, but that was weird because we didn't follow each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I agree with that. We do some more homework on Instagram because like a love-hate relationship. So we're gonna do some more homework on that. But moving on to my next question, I have not asked it yet. Pandemic question. Um, most of the people like I've been talking to, they either say you learn something new about yourself, like whether it's starting a business, starting a blog, website. Part one of my question. Part two is did it affect you in like a positive or negative way? Like whether slow down in work or making you get more exposure?
So for part one, I definitely did learn a lot about myself during this time because I got to focus on my work a lot more and like focus on writing and stuff like filmmaking wise because it wasn't something that I was planning on doing until at least after I graduated, but because like I had the time to be home and like school was kind of online earlier in the year when everything started, that's when I was kind of like, okay, like I have time since I'm home and since I'm online all day basically anyway, why not start like doing this like the way I wanted to and everything. So I started focusing on that and I definitely learned a lot about myself like in terms of how I work and how I'm very focused. Like I definitely thought I was gonna be struggling being at home all day long and online and everything's just kind of like all over the place because it's online. And I thought that that was gonna be really annoying, but I definitely learned that I am capable of doing it, which I didn't think that I was, and it definitely helped me with pushing myself to go further with that and kind of okay, why wait to do this like when I have the opportunity to do it now? And I took up like a bunch of different hobbies during quarantine, so that was really interesting. I started like painting and skateboarding, and I taught myself to skateboard within 3 weeks, and then weeks after that, I started doing skateboarding tricks that I was learning off of YouTube. And I was like, this is cool. I can add this to my resume now. And like now it's just something that I just do and I enjoy doing it. And I learned that I'm not great at painting, but it's fun to do for me.
Yeah, it's different.
Cool. Yeah. And then in terms of like part two, the pandemic was like both good and bad for me. Like I can't lie and say, like, my 2020 was, like, as bad as many other people's 2020, and, like, in terms of, like, COVID itself, like, I did lose a lot of family to COVID, and a lot of
Hmm.
people I knew did actually pass away because of COVID, so I was affected in that way, but that kind of it motivated me, and I wasn't really out because, especially in California, everything was really tight on lockdown, and I'm, like, next to
Yeah.
Warner Bros., and even Warner Bros. Wasn't really operating, and the whole industry kind of shut down, which, like, to me, it was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to kind of step into the film world because everyone else is kind of on pause. So, like, if everything was operating normally, I kind of would have just gotten lost in the shuffle. But, like, it was like a good time for me to launch everything and start things and connecting with other creatives and stuff via Zoom that were all over the country, which was really cool. And then I was in the Sundance lab and taking classes with Sundance, which was really cool because I got to expand my film knowledge and, like, take classes with, like, people that I really looked up to in the film industry. So that really helped me as well. And then in terms of, like, the pandemic itself, I'm not well, like, business-wise, there were, like, some hardships, I would say, like, there are definitely still some hardships, like, I definitely think financially, like, that's the biggest hardship that I face
Hmm.
wise because it's hard for, like, people to want to, like, hire people right now, like, even production companies and stuff like that, but I was able to, like, go to New York and film my first feature in New York and go out there, but everyone had to have COVID test and, like, we had to, like I got my COVID compliance certificate earlier this year, and then, like, that's, like, the person on the film set now who like, all film sets are required to have them, who, like, make sure you're following COVID protocol, make sure that COVID tests are being, like, done, and, like, all of that, so I was able to do that, but, like, in terms of, like, funding and stuff like that, it was really hard, and I think a lot of people think, like, well, like, in film, like, especially as an indie filmmaker, you can apply for grants and stuff like that, but there were, like, no grants because it was like everyone was like, "There's no money, blah, blah, blah." They're like, "There's absolutely no money because everything's going to, like, thing like, COVID is, like, taking over and everything, and, like, being a dancer, like, my entire life practically is really hard to see, like, a lot of these studios that I train at and, like, these dancers that I look up to, especially dancers who are, like, have been in film, like Kenny Wormald, who is a dancer and played in this most recent version of Footloose. He played Ren in that, and I trained with him at his studio pre-COVID and everything, and to see his studio shut down and a lot of studios have to declare bankruptcy and they're closing for good and stuff like that. And these places that were like a home to me and so many other places, that was really hard. And trying to finance a film through crowdfunding during times like this, like, it's weird because, like, it's the only way, like, really that you can really make money as an indie filmmaker for your film, but it's also, like, weird to because you have to take into consideration lots of people lost their jobs, like, there's not really people who want to give money in this time because times are tough and, like, everything's tight, so that was really interesting, but then at the same time I definitely found myself, like, booking more acting roles than before, and, like I said, I was able to do my film, and, like, in June, I got signed, and, like, a big part of why I think I got signed too was because of everything happening with the times, because people were furious about everything happening and how Black people are obviously treated in this country, but it was a wake-up call for the industry as well, and I think, like, the industry, like, a lot of people started realizing like, I started noticing a lot of casting calls were being more inclusive. It wasn't like literally before COVID, all the casting calls that I would get that would come through, I would be so discouraged because they'd be like, "Blonde hair, blue-eyed, like, Caucasian," and I'm just like, "Okay, that's not me, can't apply to this," and then now it started being, like, blonde hair, blue-eyed, and, like, African American and Asian and ethnically ambiguous and, like, all of this stuff, and Hispanic and, like, calling for all these different ethnicities, And that was really helpful. And then I got signed to a manager, and like I really love my managers, and they've helped me book so many things during this time, which has been really cool, and like start taking my career further into like lead roles and stuff like that in acting. So that's been really cool. And I've been able to do that. But then like in terms of like filmmaking, that's where there have been a few bumps, but I've been able to kind of keep things as much online and engage with like my audience as I can, and like shoot some short films that with like using local actors and getting them tested, and like using my friends and making sure that they don't have COVID, and then going out and even if I'm not releasing my feature film for like a while on Amazon and stuff like that. And I've been able to have like more meetings with people and stuff like that who normally wouldn't have time for meetings. A lot of like larger casting directors, a lot of larger filmmakers who are like teaching courses and master classes and stuff like that. And they wouldn't have time for that.
Yeah.
So that's been art. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this definitely was a time to like build yourself or build a business.
Yeah.
Because I think once, I'm not even gonna say this, like whenever it's over, because I don't know when it's over, but whenever it's over, those that have like worked hard on their business, like during the crazy downtime, I've never had this much downtime ever.
Yeah.
Built during the downtime, I think their business or them as an individual will blow up. They learn so much about themselves and about the business that they're in. I know I have like this podcast only exists because of our other co-hosts and the pandemic, of course. But like I said earlier, like I have IT background, so I know nothing about talking to people, which I learned by the way. But yeah, so the pandemic has produced a lot of businesses, I think, that are going to come out to the public in 2021, because right now everything is kind of like this. So like once the world is kind of normal, like 50% normal, where you're able to go into like a studio or go into an acting studio and just audition that way versus doing it virtually, because that's the way it's done now, right? Like
Yeah.
especially if you're acting.
There have always been like self tapes, but usually you do a self tape and then you come in for a callback, and like self tapes would be like kind of rare, but like they were done. But like now it's like solely they're booking off of self tapes, or like if they want you to have like a callback or like a audition where you actually talk to the people, it's like via Zoom and everything, and they just book off of that. Like there are not really in person like callbacks, so that's really interesting too. And I think that's also been a big adjustment for a lot of actors, is trying to like have that personality show that the way that it does in person, and like being personable in a room with someone as the same way through a screen, and like trying to show that.
Mhm.
So that's been really interesting.
Yeah, I talked to I talked to an actress who's in LA, by the way, but like she's from Puerto Rico. So she was telling me that like it's kind of done like this, and I was just like, oh, that must be really different, especially for people that are used to like being in a studios in front of people. So like that had to be like a crazy adjustment. But
Yeah.
do you have a take on that? Like, is it? Do you feel like it's different? Like, I know it's different, of course, like with this, but like, far as like the interaction, is it like different, or is it some taking to get used to?
I think it takes some getting used to, but I definitely do say it's different. Like, especially like in acting school and like pre-COVID and everything, like in acting school, they prepped us for auditions, and it was always like your in-person type of audition, how you walk in, how you would slate and stuff like that. And we obviously would go over like self tapes, but it wasn't like to the extent or like the stuff that they ask for now with the self tape is like really interesting too, because now they'll ask like for you to get like you always have like a full body shot when you slate, but they now want like a separate full body shot of you, and then they want like sometimes like your profile and everything like that. And then so they can get like a sense of your body, or like they'll ask you to send in a recent photo along with your self tape so you can see like what you look like on camera like fully, because when you film a self tape it's usually like from here up and like have some head space above your head so that it's pretty close. And that's been really interesting, but it's like I think it's helpful also because it does help for actors who are film and TV actors so that you can practice being in front of a camera and be more aware of that and like what facial expressions. And it's also nice too because you can redo it as many times as you want before you say
Yeah.
it, compared to like being in person and like I have to nail it this first time. So if I don't like something that like a certain way that I said a word or like a sentence came out, I can always like redo it. And that's really interesting. I think like the hardest part is definitely for a lot of actors living alone and trying to do the self tape because it's definitely more helpful when you have someone else to do that. And the hardest part of doing them when you're alone too is that you have to, if it's like a script of sides that they send you and not like a monologue, they want you to have a reader, so it's not like you can do your own lines or anything. So you usually have to call someone to read on like your laptop and set up your phone or your camera to be filming you, and they're reading off of the laptop, and sometimes it's hard to hear what they're saying and you're trying to stay in the scene and it kind of takes you out of it. And I think that's what a lot of us are getting adjusted to, is that. But it's definitely easier to have like someone there to read with you in person while you're filming.
Yeah, that sounds extremely difficult, especially during the COVID, if you're asking someone to
Yeah.
help you out with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely I wouldn't know if I could do that. I'm like, do I have to wear a mask while I do this? And do they have to wear a mask? This is gonna be really confusing for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you for insight on that as well. I need to get you have a YouTube channel, right? Or is it yours or is it your business YouTube channel? Or is it two of them?
It's mine. It's like a personal one, but I put like all my business stuff there as well. Like, yeah.
Okay. The video's streaming on YouTube already, but like after this, I'll go edit it and like tag you, of course, because that's what I do when I interview with people. But winding down because I want to be able to fit this on Instagram. So I'm actually final. So Instagram 60 seconds. 60 minutes. So I'm actually final question. Is there anything you wanted to share that you didn't get to share while talking to me for 57 minutes?
I'm not sure. Not that I can think of.
All right. Okay, for sure. I'll take that answer. If you want a copy of the video, I'll DM you to get your email, and then I could just send it to you, and then we'll just do that.
Okay.
And final statement. Thank you for agreeing to come chat with me today. It was pretty cool. Hopefully, part 2 later down the road. But like I said, this video is gonna be on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, maybe Instagram, depending how they act. But yeah, thank you for joining me today. It was pretty cool. I'll leave the last minute to you to say something if you need to say something, like your Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really great conversation and a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much. And yeah, people can check out my website, yellowrainproductions.net. And we actually have an internship that just launched that's taking applications through December 31st in the LA area and makeup for film. So yeah.
Okay. For sure. Sounds good. I'll go ahead and end here. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
And for sure, hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
You too.
And talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
All right. So hope you guys enjoyed that interview. It was pretty cool. But I'm gonna end this right now because I'm trying to fit this on Instagram. So follow us on Instagram, Keep It 100 Podcast Show.